Imagine a place where silence reigns, a farmhouse deep in the heart of the Bavarian woods, far from prying eyes. A place where the only sounds are the wind through the trees and perhaps the distant cry of a crow. But on one terrifying night, this silence was shattered. 6 lives were brutally taken. There were no witnesses, no struggle heard, and the most horrifying detail of all, a killer who stayed. A killer who lived among the corpses, fed the animals, cooked meals, and slept in the beds of the dead. This is the unsolved horror of Hinterkaifeck, Germany's most chilling murder mystery. A crime so baffling, so audacious, that it continues to whisper through the trees a century later, demanding answers that may never come. The year was 1922. The month was March. A harsh, late winter still clung to the Bavarian countryside in Germany. Far from any town, hidden away in the deep, dark shadows of a dense forest, lay a remote farmstead. It was called Hinterkaifeck. The name itself, meaning behind the Kaifeck woods, spoke of its hidden nature. It was a place of quiet, hard work, and deep seclusion. 6 people called Hinterkaifeck home. At the head was Andreas Gruber, the elderly father, a stern and often difficult man, known for his strict ways. His wife, Silvia Gruber, was a few years younger, her face also weathered by years of farm life. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, lived with them, helping with the chores. Her own life marked by hardship. And with Victoria came her 2 young children, Cecilia, a bright-eyed girl of 7, and little Joseph, just 2 years old, a toddler full of innocent joy. They were a family living a simple, hard-working life, far from the bustling world. Just days before the horror, a new person arrived at Hinterkaifeck. Her name was Maria Bombgartner, a young maid, fresh to the farm. She had only been there for a few hours, perhaps a day. She was there to help with the household chores, to bring a new presence to the quiet farm. She had no idea of the terrible fate that awaited her. 6 people lived there, 6 souls. None of them would live through the night. The isolated farmhouse, quiet and unassuming, was about to become the stage for a crime so brutal, so baffling, that it would haunt Germany for a century. In the days leading up to the murders, the quiet of Hinterkaifeck was broken by a series of strange, unsettling events. Small things at first, easily dismissed, but together they painted a chilling picture. A picture of something or someone watching, waiting. The first sign came with the snow. Fresh, undisturbed snow lay around the farm. But one morning, Andreas Gruber found something deeply disturbing. Footprints, clear, distinct footprints in the fresh snow. They led from the dense, dark forest straight to the back door of the farmhouse. But here's the chilling part. There were no footprints leading back. It was as if someone had walked to the house and then simply vanished. Or more terrifyingly, had never left. Then came the sounds. Footsteps. Faint, unsettling footsteps. They echoed in the attic, directly above Andreas's bedroom, night after night. He would go up to investigate, but find nothing, just empty space. A trick of the old house, or something far more sinister. The family tried to explain it away, but the unease grew. A few days later, a key vanished. The house key, a spare, was taken from its usual spot. Andreas, already on edge, tried to brush it off. But the feeling of being watched, of something being wrong, was growing stronger. He even told his neighbors about these strange occurrences. He spoke of the footprints, the attic noises, the missing key. He was worried. He was uneasy. But no one knew. No one understood. The neighbors listened, but they lived far away. They couldn't feel the creeping dread that was tightening its grip on Hinterkaifeck. They couldn't know that the evil Andreas sensed was not outside, lurking in the woods. It was already inside. It had already entered their home. It was living among them, waiting for the perfect, terrifying moment to strike. The stage was set. The victims were unknowingly trapped. The night of March 31st, 1922, was cold and silent. A typical Friday night at Hinterkaifeck. The family had gone to bed. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, was likely asleep in her room. Little Joseph, just 2, was tucked in his crib. The farmhouse was dark, quiet, But evil was wide awake. One by one, they were lured outside. We don't know how. Perhaps a strange noise, a call for help, a distraction. First, Andreas Gruber, the old father. He likely went to check on the barn, his lantern swinging in the dark. He was struck down with a pickaxe, a swift, brutal blow. His body was then dragged into the barn, hidden in the hay. Then, his wife, Silvia Gruber. She must have followed, wondering where Andreas had gone. She too met the same gruesome fate, struck down by the same terrifying weapon. Her body too was dragged and stacked in the barn alongside her husband. Next, their daughter, Victoria Gabriel. She must have come out, perhaps hearing the muffled sounds or realizing her parents were missing. She was struck down. And then, the most heartbreaking act of all. Little Cecilia, just 7 years old, Victoria's daughter. She too was lured out, or followed her mother, and was brutally murdered with the pickaxe. All four bodies, the parents, the daughter, and the innocent child, were then stacked like sacks of grain in the barn. A horrifying, methodical act of pure evil. But the horror wasn't over. Inside the silent farmhouse, 2 more lives remained. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had only just arrived, was murdered in her bed. And finally, the tiny, innocent Joseph Gabriel, just 2 years old, was brutally murdered in his crib. No one was spared. The entire family and their new maid, wiped out in one terrifying night. The killer had done their unspeakable work. The farm was silent once more. But here is the detail that makes this case truly unique, truly terrifying. The killer then stayed. They didn't flee into the night. They didn't disappear. They remained at Hinterkaifeck, among the corpses, hidden in plain sight. Over the next 4 days, a chilling charade unfolded at Hinterkaifeck. The killer, or killers, lived on the farm as if nothing had happened, as if 6 people hadn't just been brutally murdered. Each morning, smoke rose from the chimney, a normal sight for any nearby farm. But this smoke came from a fire lit by a murderer. The cows in the barn were fed, their low moans echoing in the silence. The chickens were tended to. The dog was let out. The killer performed the daily chores, maintaining the illusion of life at Hinterkaifeck. Meals were cooked. Food was eaten. It's believed the killer even slept in the beds of the murdered family. Imagine sleeping in the very rooms where their victims had taken their last breaths, eating their food, living their lives, all while the corpses of the Gruber family and Maria lay hidden, decaying, just yards away in the barn or in their beds inside the house. The silence of Hinterkaifeck was now a heavy, terrifying thing, a silence that hid unspeakable evil. No one noticed. The farm looked normal from a distance. The smoke rose. The animals were quiet. The killer was a ghost in their own home, a master of deception. For 4 agonizing days, the killer lived at Hinterkaifeck, among the corpses, as if nothing had happened. No one noticed. No one suspected. The world outside went on, unaware of the horror that had taken root in the quiet Bavarian woods. Until it was April 4th, Tuesday, 4 days after the murders. The silence from Hinterkaifeck had finally become too loud for the neighbors. Little Cecilia, the 7-year-old, hadn't shown up for school. The mail hadn't been picked up. A mechanic who had come to fix an engine found no one home. Suspicion, a cold, creeping dread, began to spread. A small group of neighbors, including Lawrence Schlittenbauer, decided to investigate. They walked to the farm. They saw the smoke, the fed animals. Everything seemed normal. But then Lawrence pushed open the heavy wooden door to the barn. What he saw inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. The bodies, mutilated, cold, decaying in the hay. Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and little Cecilia, stacked, piled like firewood, a scene of unimaginable horror. The silence of the farm was broken by screams of terror and disbelief. Police arrived, and so did chaos. The remote farm, once so isolated, was now swarming with curious locals. They trampled through the snow, touching everything, contaminating the scene, unknowingly destroying vital clues. The initial investigation was overwhelmed. The bodies were examined. The gruesome details revealed the brutal nature of the attack. The weapon, a pickaxe, was never found. The skulls of the dead were removed, sent for analysis, hoping to yield answers. But in a tragic twist of fate, these crucial pieces of evidence were later lost, destroyed in the chaos of World War II. To this day, no murder weapon has ever been found, no definitive proof, just the chilling, unyielding questions. With no clear evidence, no witnesses, and a contaminated scene, the investigation quickly stalled. But the human mind demands answers. Theories bloomed, dark and speculative, trying to make sense of the senseless. One of the main suspects was Lorenz Schlittenbauer. He was the man who discovered the bodies. He was also a neighbor, and he had a complicated past with Victoria Gabriel, the murdered daughter. He claimed to be the father of little Joseph, the 2-year-old victim. His behavior after the murders was incredibly strange. He acted oddly. He gave inconsistent stories to the police. He even claimed to have found a key to the house, a key that shouldn't have existed, and used it to open a locked door. He was questioned many times. His house was searched, but there was never enough evidence. He was never charged. Was he truly innocent, or a cunning killer hiding in plain sight? Other theories emerged. Some believed it was a vagrant, a homeless wanderer who stumbled upon the farm and committed the murders. But how would a stranger know the farm's routine? How would they stay hidden for 4 days? Others believed it was a revenge killing, perhaps against Andreas Gruber, who was known to be a difficult man, or a crime of passion linked to Victoria's complicated relationships. Who was this monster, and what allowed such chilling evil to escape? The silence of that farmhouse still screams the unanswered questions. Are you brave enough to delve deeper into the darkest true crimes? Subscribe and follow us to uncover more chilling mysteries and unsolved enigmas the world tried to forget.